Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me here for the Tuesday Morning Mindset. This is Beto Paredes, your host, as always. I'm looking forward to today. How are you guys feeling about today? What are you going to accomplish today? Did you wake up, take a deep breath, and really look at what it was that you wanted to accomplish by the end of the day? Did you look at the outcomes that you were trying to produce? Did you think about the objectives that you had and ask yourself, first thing this morning, what do I want to accomplish by the end of today? We should always start with a solid blueprint, whether that be the few hours that we're working, the day that we're working in, the week, the month. Always understand your outcomes. Focus on developing a way of being very clear about what those outcomes are. The more clear you are about your outcomes, the more effective your work will be. You could work 3 times as hard being unclear about your outcomes and only get half as much done because you weren't clear about what you were trying to accomplish. So always at the beginning of your day, spend a little bit of time to ask yourself, what do I want to see this day produce for me? What are the outcomes of this day? If you can put that into some kind of a perspective strategy, you'll do so much better. So we do this every single day, every single weekday, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to join us and you're watching this by video, you can go to tinyurl.com/MMS today and go ahead and sign up and join us here. We do as much as we can on a daily basis to get our mindset, to be able to get focused so that we can make the day effective, make it really count. And so that's what we're here to do today. We're going to cover a subject. I suggest you get a notebook and a pen, write down some information about the subject today, see how you can integrate it into what you're planning to do for the rest of your day, and let's get out there and do some incredible things together. So let's get into our subject here. Alrighty, so today's subject. When you need to make engineering adjustments to your blueprint, be smart. What does this mean? Any of you ever listen to Tony Robbins talk about your blueprint? This is something actually me and my wife were talking about this morning. What's interesting is I wasn't even planning for that to work so well. A lot of times when we listen to Tony Robbins in the morning, he blends right into the mindsets that I have today more than others, I guess. And he talks about the blueprint that we have for our lives, literally that perspective, our story that we're building ourselves into, our paradigm of happiness that we believe, if achieved as we grow, will create that pleasure in our lives. So I want to talk today about making adjustments. When you need to make engineering adjustments to your blueprint, you want to be smart. One moment, I'm checking my my audio. I got a message here. Let me look here and see what this is trying to tell me. One moment, everybody. Let me check my audio. Okay, it says I might need to turn it down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that a tiny bit. Hopefully that helps. And maybe I just shouldn't talk so loud. I got a really loud voice, you know. I do. A lot of times, even when I'm on stage and I'm presenting on stage, I don't even need a microphone because my voice is so loud. So I will attempt to talk a little bit less in volume so that I'm not tweaking out the instruments here. So how's that? So when you need to make engineering adjustments to your blueprint, be smart. Now, what is it that our blueprint is consistent of? Well, it's the things that we are wanting, it's the outcomes that we're looking for. If we know what the outcomes are, then we know how to strategically develop a way for us to accomplish those things. If you're working specifically, let's say in your network marketing business, you should know what you want. Okay, and you should be realistic. I spoke with one network marketer at one time, and I've noticed she's never really done anything past the time that I had the conversation with her. And I asked her, what did you want to accomplish in 2016? Really bright young lady, actually had a lot of internet marketing experience. And she said that she needed to make $1 million in 2016. And I was impressed. That's a lofty goal. You know, that is a blueprint that I think many people, if they could accomplish, and which many can, would be a very good thing to put your mind on. And so knowing her outcome, I started speaking to her from the perspective of what that outcome might look like. I mean, you really got to be innovative. You've got to work hard. You've got to master the skill set that you have in such an extremity that you're going to go from something you really have little knowledge of. Let's say if you made 30,000 this year, 50,000 the next, you haven't really made $1 million, to be able to get to hit that stretch. Okay, so the thing is when you start with your blueprint, it is okay to have an extreme trajectory. Okay, it's okay to say I'm going to make $1 million in a year. You might want to build yourself up to that perspective and be realistic. If I was in a network marketing business, and I've been in plenty, and I wanted to make a monthly goal, it would look a little bit more like, how do I get to $3,500 a month? How do I get to $5,000 a month? Okay, how do I really get to $50 a day? How do I recruit one person that actually buys one product a day? Those kinds of goals in your blueprint are strategically more accurate. In the long run, they will build potentially to where you can make adjustments to where you are moving towards the potential of making $1 million a year. What you need to understand about truth, let's use truth for an example. Things are always partially true. Okay, once you've outgrown something, it is no longer true for you to continue to work the way you may have been working. You have to make adjustments. Because that is a fact, because scalability and growth requires adjusting the scale of your activities, adjusting the scale of your relationships and your focus, I like to look at it like this. Do not try to create a blueprint other than a master blueprint. We'll talk about that a little bit too, that doesn't have the proper amount of flexibility in it, okay? One thing that you should know intuitively as people is that we're usually pretty accurate. If you talk to anybody who's very successful and has been, let's say, for a number of years, let's say they're 15 years into their career, and they talk to you about what they'd accomplished in their career prior or in the years prior, they'll talk about a tremendous number of things that they may have adjusted, surprises, completely change in directions that happened. I explain this to people in some of my other trainings that, you know, life isn't a straight line, it's a curve, right? It's more of an orbit, right? We're orbiting to a degree, right? Within us are millions, billions of atoms that are whirling around each other, and around us, outside of us, we're on a planet whirling around a sun that's whirling around a gigantic center. For us to believe that for any reason that our psychological, physical, or actual realities are not somewhere within that fabric is to separate ourselves from reality. Okay, so life goes in a curve. Now, if you can see a little bit further around that curve, you get what's called insight and intuition. And a lot of us that get into more of a contemplative perspective can see that, and that's where a lot of our master blueprint comes from. We know where we want to be in most respects in 20, 30 years from now. And most people that are successful have a fairly clear picture of where it is that they do want to be. And when they speak in retrospect, after they've reached that level of success, they're able to explain that. Yeah, well, you know, lots of things changed. I made a lot of adjustments, but the main principles of their goals are usually still pretty much intact. Okay, Tony Robbins likes to bring this up. I like this a lot. Actually, I read this very, very recently. I'm rereading Awaken the Giant Within, a very good book. And in there, he talks about people that are successful make decisions quickly, but change them slowly. People that are unsuccessful make decisions slowly and change them quickly. So that might sound in a reversal, but really what it comes down to is you really do know intuitively what it is that you may want to at least a good degree. That master blueprint is not hard to develop, but you got to understand that life is a curve. No matter how much intuition or perspective you have on it, you really don't want to know everything that's going to happen because life brings incredibly huge and amazing and potential opportunities. One of my business partners, Leroy Gambro, brought me an incredible opportunity yesterday with a celebrated speaker. I'm actually personally a screenwriter. have written several screenplays. I look at that as let's just call it a serious hobby. It's not even necessarily part of my master blueprint. It's something I love to do, though. And all of a sudden, I had an opportunity that may even somehow delve into that side of my personality, and I was amazed at that opportunity, that at least idea of opportunity yesterday, and that was part of that curve. It may or may not happen to whatever degree, but life doesn't just bring you the surprises that you don't want. It also brings you the ones that you do want, and when those come, that's where you've got to be careful. When you get the surprises you want and the ones you don't, you've got to be careful about the adjustments you make. Because if you're retrospective and introspective and thinking about where you're trying to get to, honestly, the main points of that master blueprint really don't change that much. And for the people that are very successful, they made major adjustments over time, but usually those core principles are the same. So let's talk about that a little bit. You got to be smart about it. As we continue down the path as entrepreneurs, we always learn more about what is working and what is not working. Okay? There's no way to get past the idea that there's going to be continual growth. I talk about this again. There needs to be a different word for failure. Okay? What cracks me up is very positive and like seasoned entrepreneurs, ones that have been in the business for a long time, out there pounding pavement, making things happen. They use this term fail forward. It cracks me up. I mean, we really actually need a different word altogether for that point where what you were planning didn't happen or was majorly shifted, and you had to make certain specific adjustments because of that shift. You had to adjust your blueprint because of that shift. Okay, when I say adjust your blueprint, I don't mean your strategy. Your blueprint is what you're building into. And you have to adjust your blueprint as much as you have to adjust your strategy. Your strategy may be adjusted greatly on a day-to-day basis, really depending on where you're headed, who comes into your life, what those opportunities look like, where it might take you. You got to have that flexibility and agility, really, that precision to be able to move quickly and take corners the way you need to take them. That's your strategy. But the blueprint, those are the perspective desires that you really have, your outcomes that you're looking to produce. And so you want to be careful about the adjustments you make there. Make it part of your practice. Okay, this is an important thing to understand, is it's not just something that, oh, well, Beto was speaking about when things happen and things change. And no, this is part of your practice. Okay, as much as, let's say, sitting down and planning your day at the beginning of your day and figuring out what your outcomes are for the day, like we talked about earlier today. Okay, so this is part of your practice. Make it part of your practice to choose 20% of what is not working and re-engineer it on a weekly basis. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you've been through it, you know from Monday to Friday, things alter. Remember, life moves on a curve, and it's not just entrepreneurship. Okay, name me one person that can point back 10 years earlier, and I don't mean the main points of the blueprint, we talked about that can tell you that everything they expected to happen exactly as they said it would happen happened. It's never that way. As a matter of fact, the most successful people talk about how incredibly lucky they've been, that it was a matter of performance and luck. Right? It's not. That luck is simply the reality that your sense of direction, okay, listen closely, your sense of direction, your intuition that you are on the right path, moving the direction that makes the most sense to your growth and progress, and its unfoldment in your life, the people that show up, the surprises you get that you want, and the ones you get that you don't want too. They are all a process of developing your model, whatever it may be over a period of time. And when you don't get caught up in it, when you don't take 100% of it, your blueprint and just throw it to the side and go do something completely different because you got scared, your self-esteem dropped, you suddenly got problems with the way you're looking at it, you run out of money, You know, one thing I actually read it on Facebook yesterday, is learn to rest, not quit. Sometimes you have to rest. That doesn't mean that everything you've been working on suddenly needs to be thrown out the door because you're feeling all of these feelings. Okay, emotions drive us to the point of immediate action. And that is a good thing, all right? Again, Tony Robbins talks about being in state. You want to be in state, and that state is an emotional fixity on the things that you're working on to accomplish. But the problem, to a degree, is emotions themselves create state. So it's more that you need to control the state that they're in, because low self-esteem and that experience that you have when it drives that depressive feeling in you is also a state. Okay, your belief in yourself, to whatever degree, is also a state. Brian Tracy, best book I ever read by him, Psychology of Sales, spends the entire first couple of chapters talking about how you get out of bed and tell yourself that you like yourself 15 times. You know, at first I was like, okay, I get it. I like myself. Okay, I get it. You know, and I kept reading. I'm like, man, he just keeps referencing that. And I got through that book, and you know what? He kept referencing that the whole book. And me and my wife just jokingly for a minute just started trying that a little bit. We get out of bed and try it. We tell ourselves we like ourselves 3 times. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. You know, it sounds kind of funny. Well, it makes me laugh, makes me feel better even to say it. But the reality is, it's the control of that state, all right? When you get emotionally charged and you just want to burn everything to the ground, because I'll tell you, every entrepreneur feels that. Because when something bad happens and you can't see around that curve, you feel like all hope is lost. We have a tendency to try to correct that through massive change. Okay, and massive action and massive change are not the same thing. Take massive action towards perspective, knowing that your core master blueprint principles were accurate. It's okay to be accurate from that perspective of where you'd like to get to. I'd like to be in a position where let's say you want to become a millionaire. Okay, it's okay to still hold that perspective even if all the things you tried to get there didn't work the way you wanted them to. Okay, so make it part of your practice to choose 20% of what is not working and re-engineer it on a weekly basis. Then you don't run into those problems. Then every time you run into something you think may need adjustment, in your mind you're like, well, that must be part of the 20%. So at the end of your week, on Friday, end of Friday, last hour, sit down and look at that 20%. Even keep that in a separate document and call it your adjustment document, things that may need adjusting. Okay, that'll help keep you calm about things that happen when they do that feel so omnipresent and verbative and also just completely sometimes destructive. It's okay. Put it aside. Put it in a list. You need to make adjustments on it. Doesn't mean you need to completely burn down your master blueprint, but you will make adjustments. And if you're planning to do it on a weekly basis and even planning up to 20% of the things that you're trying to accomplish, but leave that 80% in place, well, then you're learning to actually see life as it is, and you're understanding that life has curves and that there is no straight A to B. Okay, there's an expansion. If you guys have ever seen Pi or the spiral, we become greater. We become larger. Life becomes bigger. You know, Carl Jung talks about it as this expansion of the personality. Okay, that our personalities do experience this expansiveness. That is what happens. Okay, it's not an A to B, it's this expansiveness, and life works in an orbit or in curves. So don't jump the gun on anything specific. Have a plan. Have a formatted experiential plan to write things down that you need to make adjustments on, 20%. Make sure you give what you're doing enough time to see if it really needs changed. Okay? Just because something didn't work for one day, that is not a reason to make an adjustment. Okay? You got to give it real weight and measure, and you really know in your heart how long you need to let it go. Okay? You have an extremely accurate compass. Your emotional, logical, rational compass is much stronger than you think. Okay, the human mind, the human brain is incredible. You're probably accurate when you take the time to calm yourself down like a lake with no disturbances and imagine the things that you're trying to accomplish and get a good feel for where they're at. Trust yourself. Make sure you give what you're doing enough time to see if it really needs changed. And recalibration with careful consideration is critical to growth. Okay, when you're pushing up, you're doing push-ups and you're doing pull-ups and bench press and squats, what are you trying to do? You're trying to build a body. You're trying to make a stronger body, right? You're trying to adjust yourself. You're trying to recalibrate your physical system. Well, what comes right along with that? Pain, difficulty, soreness. Okay, that lactic acid gets shot into your muscle systems, and your muscles have to tear. If you're a smaller guy and you want to get bigger, for example, you have to tear. Okay, muscle growth is literally a tearing apart of the muscle tissue, and then it reconditions into a stronger, more capable potential. You become stronger. Okay, everything in life is related. Everything in life follows the same fabric. Recalibration with careful consideration is critical to growth. Just like working out. No matter what you think your business is now, you are going to have to go through the pain of becoming and discovering what it will be. And you want to look at it just like working out. Get those push-ups done. It's okay. Go through it. Okay? Believe in the process. You might be really sore right now, intellectually, emotionally, because of something on that curve that you couldn't predict. Let that soreness of your soul subside. Be peaceful about it. Recalibration with careful consideration is critical to growth, just like it is when you're doing something that requires physical performance. So, Tuesday morning, everybody jump up and down, jump up and down. Let's get some energy going. Let's get some energy through your body. If you sit down at your computer and you yawn and you don't have the energy like you're about to run a 100-meter dash, get off your butt for a minute. Walk around, shake your hands out, move your head around, jump up and down. Okay, I walk out of my office and get some sunlight when I get on some of my first calls most of the time in the morning, get my blood flowing. Okay, it's important. Physiology is extremely important to your psychology. Say that with me. Physiology is extremely important to your psychology. Get your blood moving. Get your nerves working, okay? Let's get out there and make something happen today. Let's figure out what we can do today to get into a program where we can literally, on the end of this week, make some adjustments to how next week's going to work, but not make that 100%, only that 20%. Because if you think about it, you do 20% adjustments every single week, over a period of time, you will really start to calibrate your business and become more successful. I'd love to hear back from any of you guys. If any of you would like to email me, beto@betoparedes.com. Please join me here tomorrow, and please take some time, sit down, write a few things that you learned today, and see if you can't put that into perspective and get your mindset and have an incredible day. Thank you so much for joining.